The silence in the grand chamber was deafening. Thousands of alien representatives from across the galaxy sat in tiered rows that stretched up toward the distant ceiling, their bodies representing every imaginable form of evolved life. Some floated in special chambers filled with their native atmospheres, while others sat in modified seats that accommodated their unique physiologies. Representative Daho's silver scales rippled with nervousness as he stood at the central podium. He had rehearsed this moment countless times, but nothing could have prepared him for the weight of so many eyes focused on him. His species, the Viridians, had only recently gained full membership in the Galactic Council, and this was supposed to be a routine report about a preliminary survey of a primitive world. The massive holographic display behind him sprang to life, projecting a three-dimensional image of Earth and its moon. Several council members leaned forward in their seats, their attention caught by the unusual amount of activity visible in Earth's orbit. Most honored members of the council, Daho began, his translator converting his natural whistling speech into the standard galactic language. 3 standard months ago, our exploration vessel approached the third planet of the Sol system for a routine pre-contact evaluation. He paused, his throat scales contracting with tension. What we found was unexpected. The hologram zoomed in on Earth's moon, revealing vast dome cities sprawling across the lunar surface. Mining operations dotted the landscape, and space elevators stretched up into the void, connecting to orbital stations that bustled with activity. Several council members gasped audibly. These lunar bases, Daho continued, his voice steadying as he focused on the facts, are fully self-sufficient and house approximately 3 million humans. Our scans indicate they have been established for at least 50 Earth years. The image shifted again, this time showing a series of massive ships moving between Mars and Jupiter's moons. They weren't the clunky, primitive vessels expected of a young spacefaring race. Instead, they moved with a grace that suggested advanced propulsion systems, their hulls gleaming with technology that shouldn't have been possible for their level of development. From her crystalline pod in the front row, Ambassador Jai Yun's translucent form pulsed with agitation. Her voice, when it came through the translation system, carried a note of disbelief that transcended species barriers. Impossible. This sector was under observation. How did we miss this? Daho's scales flushed a deeper silver as he responded. That is perhaps the most concerning aspect, Ambassador. Our preliminary investigation suggests that the humans have developed methods of masking their technological signatures that we have never encountered before. The chamber erupted in murmurs, and the equivalent of whispers in dozens of alien languages. A massive Crethian in the third row rose to its full height, its tentacles waving in agitation. Are you suggesting, its translator boomed, that a species we classify as pre-industrial less than 200 years ago has not only achieved spaceflight, but has done so while actively hiding their advancement from us? Yes, Council Member, Daho confirmed, bringing up new images. These are their Mars colonies. As you can see, they have achieved full terraforming of several regions. The human presence on Mars now numbers approximately 1 million individuals. The images continued to flow. Massive space stations at the Earth-Moon Lagrange points, mining operations throughout the asteroid belt, research stations orbiting Jupiter's moons, and most surprisingly, ships that seemed to simply appear and disappear at will between destinations. Ambassador Jai Yun's crystalline form shimmered with increasing intensity. This violates every protocol we have established for the development of young civilizations. They should have been guided, monitored, their development shaped to ensure compatibility with galactic society. Daho's scales rippled in what his species equivalent of a grimace. There's more, Ambassador. We have reason to believe that the humans— He paused, gathering his courage. That the humans have been aware of our presence for some time. They have been watching us, studying us, while we thought we were studying them. The chamber exploded into chaos. Representatives from dozens of species began shouting questions or demands. Some called for immediate military action, others for diplomatic contact, and still others for a full investigation into how this surveillance failure had occurred. In the midst of the uproar, a small hologram appeared on Daho's podium. It showed a simple message, written in perfect galactic standard. "We know you're watching. When you're ready to talk as equals, we'll be here." The timestamp showed it had been sent from Earth the moment he had begun his presentation. Daho looked up at the chaos in the chamber, his scales now almost white with stress. He had delivered his report, but he knew this was just the beginning. Somewhere on that blue planet below, humanity was waiting, and they had apparently been waiting for a very long time. The foundations of galactic society, built on the assumption of guided development and careful integration of young species, had just been shaken to its core. And in the back of his mind, Daho couldn't help but wonder, if humans had hidden this much from the Council, what else were they capable of? Senior investigator Newell rubbed her tired eyes as she stared at the holographic displays floating around her office aboard the dawning light. The ship hung in high orbit above Earth, its advanced sensors constantly gathering data about the planet below. For the past week, she had barely slept, trying to understand how an entire civilization had managed to hide in plain sight. The numbers and readings scattered across her displays should have made sense. She had investigated 17 emerging civilizations during her career, and there had always been patterns, predictable technological progression paths that every species followed. But Earth's development was different. It was as if someone had taken the standard roadmap of civilization advancement and torn it into pieces. Newell zoomed in on one particular graph showing Earth's electromagnetic emissions over the past century. Where there should have been a steady increase in technological signatures, there was instead a clever manipulation of the planet's natural radiation shield. The humans hadn't just hidden their development. They had used their planet's unique properties as a cloak. She was so absorbed in her analysis that she nearly jumped when her assistant, Tamin, burst through the door. His usually neat uniform was wrinkled, and his hair was disheveled from running his hands through it too many times, a common habit when he was excited about a discovery. "Senior investigator," he exclaimed, his eyes wide with excitement. "We found something incredible. The humans, they didn't follow any of the expected technological progression paths. They developed completely different solutions to spaceflight." Newell quickly pulled up the new data Tainmin was transmitting to her system. Her eyes widened as she studied the information. "This can't be right," she muttered, but the evidence was there in front of her. They completely skipped antimatter containment research. "Yes," Tamin moved to her side, pointing at various data points. "Look here. While every other known species spent centuries trying to perfect antimatter containment for deep space travel, humans went in a completely different direction. They developed something they call quantum displacement drives. It's not just different technology. It's a fundamentally different approach to the problem of space travel." Newell leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. "And here," she pointed to another section of data, their colony development. "No species has ever established self-sustaining lunar colonies before achieving faster-than-light travel. It's simply not done. The resource investment is too high for the return. But the humans did it anyway," Tamin finished. "They built their lunar bases first, then their Mars colonies, then the asteroid mining operations. They created a stable, self-sustaining solar system civilization before even attempting to reach for the stars." Newell pulled up more data, this time focusing on human communication systems. "Look at this. They developed quantum entanglement communication arrays decades ago, but they kept using primitive radio signals for most of their transmissions. They were deliberately maintaining the appearance of a less advanced civilization." "It gets better," Tamin said, sending another data packet to her display. "We found evidence that they've been intercepting and decoding Council communications for years. They know our protocols, our technology. They probably know more about us than we know about them." Newell stood up abruptly. "Get me a secure channel to the Council. They need to see this immediately." As Tamin hurried to establish the connection, She organized the data into a coherent presentation. This changes everything we thought we knew about technological development. The humans haven't just advanced. They found entirely new paths to advancement. As she waited for the council connection, a new message appeared on her screen. It was from Earth's surface, encoded in perfect council standard. Interested in comparing notes. Investigator Annual. We have some theories about your civilization's development path that you might find fascinating. She stared at the message, a mix of professional excitement and unease washing over her. The humans weren't just subjects of investigation anymore. They were actively engaging with their observers, turning the tables on the watchers. She looked out her office viewport at the blue planet below, seeing it with new eyes. Earth wasn't just another emerging civilization. It was something entirely new in the galaxy's history. The council connection chimed, ready to receive her report. Newell took a deep breath, knowing that what she was about to present would fundamentally change the galaxy's understanding of technological progress. The humans hadn't just hidden their advancement. They had charted an entirely new course to the stars, and in doing so, they had proven that everything the Council thought they knew about civilization development might be wrong. As she began her presentation, she couldn't help but wonder what other surprises Earth had in store for them. One thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same after this revelation. Council emissary Sung Jin stood rigid as Earth filled the massive view screen of the diplomatic vessel, Starseeker. The blue planet looked deceptively peaceful from this distance, but the readings told a different story. Their sensors were detecting thousands of artificial satellites, defense platforms, and ships moving in precise patterns around the planet. Behind him, the delegation of the galaxy's most powerful representatives shifted in their seats. The Arcturian ambassador's tendrils were twitching, a sure sign of nervousness. The Centaurian representative's crystalline form was pulsing with an unusual frequency, and even the normally stoic Proximan observer was showing signs of discomfort. They had come to deliver a formal censure to a primitive race that had violated galactic law. Instead, they were approaching a world that seemed more than ready for their arrival. "Entering Earth orbit in 5 minutes," announced the navigation officer, her scales reflecting the blue light from Earth. "We're being guided to a specific orbital path by something." Sung Jin frowned. "What do you mean by something?" "The guidance system appears automated, but it's using protocols we've never encountered before," the officer replied. "It's more advanced than our own systems." Before Sung Jin could respond, the main communication screen activated without any input from their side. A human woman appeared, wearing what was clearly a military uniform, though not one that matched any of their intelligence reports. Her calm expression and confident posture spoke of someone who had been expecting this conversation. "This is Admiral Yuna of the Terran Defense Force. We've been expecting you," she said in perfect galactic standard, without using any translation device they could detect. The delegation exchanged worried glances. This was wrong. They were supposed to be making first contact, not being greeted by a military official who clearly knew not only who they were but why they had come. Sung Jin cleared his throat. "Admiral, I am Council Emissary Sung Jin. We come representing the Galactic Council to deliver a formal censure regarding our independent technological development and expansion into space." Admiral Yuna finished for him. Her smile was polite but held an edge. "We're well aware of Council protocols regarding emerging civilizations. Perhaps you'd like to dock at our primary orbital station and discuss this in person." As if on cue, a massive space station came into view. It was easily twice the size of any Council orbital facility, its architecture unlike anything they had seen before. Ships of various sizes moved around it in perfect coordination, some appearing and disappearing in flashes of light that their sensors couldn't explain. "That station," the Proximan observer whispered. "It wasn't there a moment ago." "Actually, it was," Admiral Yuna replied, somehow having heard the whispered comment. "We simply allowed you to see it now. Docking instructions are being transmitted to your navigation system. We'll have refreshments ready that are compatible with all your species' biological requirements." The delegation watched in stunned silence as their ship was gently guided toward the station by invisible forces. Through the view screen, they could see more details of Earth's space infrastructure. Defense platforms that their initial scans hadn't detected, shipyards building vessels of incredible size, and what appeared to be massive energy collection arrays floating in precise formations. "Admiral," Sung Jin managed to say, trying to maintain his diplomatic composure, "you seem to have extensive knowledge of Council protocols and species requirements. May I ask how you acquired this information?" Admiral Yuna's smile widened slightly. "That's actually one of the topics I'm looking forward to discussing, along with why the Council believes it has the authority to censure independent civilizations, and perhaps a conversation about the interesting assumptions built into your species classification system." As their ship approached the docking bay, Sung Jin realized that everything about this mission had been based on a fundamental misconception. They hadn't come to censure a primitive race that had overstepped its bounds. They had walked into a situation where humanity had been quietly observing them, studying them, and preparing for this very moment. The docking clamps engaged with a gentle thud, and Admiral Yuna's image was replaced by a simple text message: "Welcome to Earth. We hope this meeting will be the beginning of a more honest relationship between our civilizations." Sung Jin looked at his fellow delegates, seeing his own realization reflected in their expressions. They had come to assert the Council's authority, but instead they were about to face something entirely unprecedented. A civilization that had developed on its own terms and was now ready to challenge everything the Council thought it knew about technological and social development. The airlock began its cycling sequence, and Sung Jin straightened his diplomatic robes. Whatever happened next would change the galaxy forever, and he had a feeling humanity was going to be leading that change, whether the Council was ready for it or not. The pristine white walls of Lunar Base Alpha's main conference room seemed to glow with their own light. Through the vast panoramic windows, Earth hung like a blue jewel in the black sky, a constant reminder of humanity's home. The Council delegation sat in specially designed chairs, facing a massive holographic display that dominated one entire wall. Admiral Yuna stood at the head of the conference table, her military uniform crisp and immaculate. The holographic display came to life, showing footage that made the alien delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. The images showed Council ships, but from angles that should have been impossible. Views from mere meters away from their hulls, interior shots through windows, even engine signatures captured from point-blank range. "We've been watching you for decades," Admiral Yuna explained, her voice calm but firm. "Our stealth systems operate on principles your sensors aren't designed to detect. This footage was taken by our observation drones over the past 30 years. The display showed a Council survey ship passing through the Oort cloud. A human stealth drone was visible in the footage, floating less than 10 meters from the alien vessel's bridge windows. None of the crew inside showed any sign of noticing its presence." Sung Jin felt his professional composure cracking. His hands gripped the edge of the table as he watched footage of his own previous diplomatic missions, completely unaware of the human observers who had been practically close enough to touch his ships. "How? Why?" Dr. Min Ki, Earth's chief scientist, stepped forward. He was an older man with gentle eyes that held a sharp intelligence. "Because we needed to understand the galaxy on our own terms, not through the lens of the Council's expectations." He gestured, and the display changed to show a timeline of human technological development. 70 years ago, we detected your first observation satellites at the edge of our solar system. Rather than announce ourselves, we chose to watch and learn. The timeline expanded, showing parallel tracks of development. We saw how the Council guided other species, standardizing their development to follow predetermined paths. But we had already begun to take different approaches to solving the challenges of space travel. Admiral Yuna nodded to a technician, and a small drone materialized in the center of the conference table. The delegation jumped back, their translation devices chattering in alarm. The drone had been there the entire time, completely invisible until now. Your sensors rely on known principles of physics, Dr. Minke continued. We developed our technology along different lines. While you perfected antimatter containment, we explored quantum displacement. While you developed faster-than-light travel through artificial wormholes, we found ways to slip between the spaces that exist between spaces. The drone disappeared again, reappearing at different points around the room. Each time, the Council's most sophisticated detection equipment showed nothing. "But why hide?" asked the Arcturian ambassador, their tendrils weaving patterns of confusion. "The Council could have helped you advance more quickly, more safely." Admiral Yuna's expression softened slightly. "Could you have? Look at your own records. Every species the Council has guided has followed the same technological path, developed the same solutions to the same problems. There's no diversity of thought, no innovation outside prescribed boundaries." Dr. Minke brought up new images, showing human colonies on Mars, mining operations in the asteroid belt, and research stations orbiting Jupiter. "We chose to find our own way. Yes, we made mistakes. Yes, there were setbacks. But every solution we developed was truly ours, shaped by our unique perspective and needs." The display showed human ships using technologies that the Council delegates couldn't even begin to understand. Vessels that seemed to fold space around themselves, communication systems that operated on principles that defied their physics models, and energy systems that drew power from what appeared to be reality itself. "We're not here to challenge the Council's authority," Admiral Yuna stated, though several delegates shifted uncomfortably at her words. "We're here to show you that there's more than one path to the stars. The galaxy is vast enough for different approaches, different solutions, different ways of thinking." Sung Jin looked at the footage still playing on the main display. Decades of human observation, patient study, and parallel development. They hadn't just hidden their advancement. They had used their secrecy to maintain their independence, to develop technologies that no one else had even imagined possible. "What happens now?" he asked, finally finding his voice again. Admiral Yuna and Dr. Minke exchanged glances. "Now," Admiral Yuna said, "we hope to begin a real dialogue. Not as teachers and students, but as equals. We have much to learn from each other, if the Council is willing to accept that their way isn't the only way." The human stealth drone materialized one final time, presenting each delegate with a data crystal. "These contain our full technological history," Dr. Minke explained. "Every success, every failure, every alternative path we explored. Consider it a gesture of good faith, and a reminder that the universe is far more interesting when we allow for different perspectives." The delegates stared at the crystals, each understanding that they held not just information, but a challenge to everything the Council had believed about technological development. The galaxy would never be the same, and perhaps that was exactly what it needed. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council had never witnessed such disorder in its 100,000-year history. The usual diplomatic restraint had given way to open confrontation as representatives from thousands of worlds argued about the human situation. The chamber's advanced acoustic systems struggled to handle the cacophony of alien languages being shouted across the tiered seating. Councillor Jin Wu's scaled fist crashed down on his podium again, sending ripples through his ceremonial robes. "We cannot allow this precedent." His voice boomed through the translation system. "A species developing unchecked could threaten everything we've built. The protocols exist for a reason." His supporters in the chamber, mostly representatives from the older, more established species, voiced their agreement. The Drachnid delegation's crystalline forms pulsed with agitation, while the Maraxian representatives' bioluminescent patterns flashed warning colors. Across the chamber, Ambassador Sua rose from her seat with deliberate grace. Her silver-white hair and traditional Earth Korean formal wear stood out among the exotic forms of the alien representatives. "Perhaps what threatens us is not their development, but our assumption that our way is the only way." Her words cut through the noise, commanding attention. "For millennia, we've guided younger species along the same technological path. never questioning if it was the best path, only assuming it was the only path. And that path has given us peace. Jin Wu countered, his scales flushing dark with emotion. Look at our history before the protocols. Countless species destroyed themselves or others because they developed without guidance. The chamber erupted into chaos. Millennia-old alliances began to splinter as different factions took sides. The Arcturus Confederation, longtime allies of Jin Wu's faction, suddenly declared their support for a more flexible approach to emerging civilizations. The Proxima Coalition threatened to withdraw from their trade agreements if strict action wasn't taken against Earth. In the midst of the chaos, a holographic display activated above the chamber's center. It showed a live feed from Mars, where humans were using their quantum displacement technology to terraform entire regions in ways the Council had never imagined possible. The sight only intensified the debate. Look at what they've achieved independently. Sua gestured at the display. Their solutions to space travel, their approach to planetary colonization. They found answers we never even thought to seek. And what happens when they share these technologies with other emerging species? Jin Wu demanded. What happens when every new civilization decides to develop in isolation? The galaxy will descend into chaos. A representative from the Sirius Collective, their form barely visible in their containment field, raised their communication beacon. We have reviewed the human data crystals. Their development path, while different, shows remarkable responsibility. They had weapons we couldn't detect, yet they never used them. They had the ability to interfere with our operations, yet they chose only to observe. The Centaurian delegation, their crystalline bodies humming with energy, added their voice. They developed in secret not out of hostility, but out of a desire to preserve their cultural and technological independence. Is that not what we claim to protect? Jin Wu's supporters weren't convinced. And what of their military capabilities? Their ships can appear and disappear at will. Their stealth technology makes them virtually undetectable. How can we trust a species with such power? Ambassador Sua's voice remained calm. The same way they must trust us, despite our own considerable capabilities. The humans didn't have to reveal themselves. They chose to, hoping for dialogue rather than confrontation. The debate continued to rage, but a subtle shift began to occur. Younger council members, particularly those from species that had more recently achieved spaceflight, started expressing curiosity about humanity's alternative development path. Even some of the older species began to question whether the Council's standardized approach to technological development had actually limited innovation across the galaxy. As the session stretched into its 10th hour, the division in the Council became clear. The galaxy stood at a crossroads. Continue with the rigid protocols that had governed civilization development for millennia, or embrace the possibility that there might be many paths to the stars. Ambassador Sua made one final address. The humans have shown us that our understanding of technological development was incomplete. We can view this as a threat to our established order, or we can see it as an opportunity to grow beyond our self-imposed limitations. The choice we make today will shake the galaxy for millennia to come. The chamber fell silent as her words sank in. The crisis wasn't just about humanity anymore. It was about the future of galactic civilization itself. As the Council prepared to vote on their response to Earth's emergence, everyone present knew that whatever they decided, the galaxy would never be quite the same again. The Coalition warships filled Earth's orbital space like a swarm of angry insects. Their hulls gleamed with weapons that could shatter planets, and their engines pulsed with enough power to move small moons. It was the largest fleet assembled in the galaxy since the Proximan Wars. Thousands of ships gathered to enforce the Council's will upon a single world. Commander Hai-Jin stood on the bridge of the TDF Prometheus, her hands clasped behind her back as she watched the enemy fleets approach. The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, their movements precise and unhurried despite the imminent threat. Through the main viewport, Earth shone blue and peaceful below them, seemingly unaware of the drama unfolding in its orbit. Coalition flagship is broadcasting their demands, reported Lieutenant Park from the communications station. They're ordering all Terran ships to power down and prepare for boarding. They're giving us 10 minutes to comply. Hai-Jin allowed herself a small smile. Acknowledge their transmission, but send no response yet. Status of our fleet. All ships report ready. Commander, came the reply from Tactical. Displacement drives are charged and synchronized. The Coalition still hasn't detected our full numbers. That was no surprise. Most of the Terran Defense Force remained invisible to conventional sensors, scattered throughout the solar system in what humanity had dubbed quantum shadow state. Only the Prometheus and a few other ships had revealed themselves, appearing to be Earth's last line of defense. Coalition fleet is launching fighters, Tactical announced. They're moving to surround our apparent positions. Hai-Jin nodded, watching the enemy ships maneuver into what they thought were optimal attack positions. They had no idea they were actually surrounding empty space. Time remaining on their ultimatum. 3 minutes, Commander. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. What they were about to do would change the galaxy's understanding of warfare forever. Signal all ships. Prepare to execute Operation Looking Glass on my mark. The bridge crew tensed slightly. They had trained for this, but training was different from facing down the largest fleet in galactic history. 1 minute remaining, Lieutenant Park announced. Hai-Jin straightened her uniform. All ships, activate displacement drives. Reality rippled. To the Coalition's sensors, the small group of Terran ships simply vanished. No energy signature, no distortion field, no warning at all. One moment they were there, the next they weren't. The Coalition fleet erupted into chaos, their formations breaking as they tried to locate the disappeared enemy. Their sensors swept space frantically, looking for any trace of the Terran ships. They were looking in the wrong direction. All ships, execute Phase 2, Hai-Jin ordered. The entire Terran fleet materialized simultaneously, appearing behind and around the Coalition forces in a perfect three-dimensional sphere. Where there had appeared to be only a handful of defenders, now hundreds of advanced warships hung in space, their weapons unused but very visible. Send the message, Hai-Jin commanded. Lieutenant Park's fingers danced across his console. On every Coalition ship's command screen, the same words appeared. Let's talk. The Coalition fleet froze in confusion. Their sensors were still trying to understand how they had been so completely outmaneuvered. Their defensive formations, designed to trap a much smaller force, had become a liability, leaving them exposed from all sides. Coalition flagship is responding, Park reported. Their admiral is requesting clarification of our intentions. Hai-Jin stepped forward. Put me on broadcast to their entire fleet. The communication system chimed ready, and she spoke clearly and calmly. This demonstration was not meant as a threat, but as an invitation to understanding. You came here expecting to find a primitive force requiring guidance and control. Instead, you found equals who took a different path to the stars. We could have appeared inside your ships or displaced your fleet across the galaxy. Instead, we choose to talk. The question is, are you ready to listen? The silence that followed was profound. On hundreds of Coalition ships, crews and commanders were realizing that everything they thought they knew about military superiority had just been upended. Their weapons, their tactics, their very understanding of space warfare had just been shown to be inadequate against humanity's different approach to physics and technology. Coalition flagship is powering down weapons, Tactical reported. Other ships are following suit. Hai-Jin nodded. Signal our ships to maintain position, but power down targeting systems. Let's show them that trust can go both ways. As the tension in Earth's orbit began to ease, Hai-Jin knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy would need time to adjust to the reality that humanity represented, a civilization that had found its own path to the stars, and in doing so, had developed capabilities that the Council's standardized development had never imagined possible. Coalition Admiral is requesting permission to dock with Prometheus for direct talks. Lieutenant Park announced. Permission granted, Hai-Jin replied. Prepare the conference room. She paused, then added with a slight smile. And let's show them some real human hospitality. I think we all could use a cup of coffee after this. The council chamber sparkled under the light of 1,000 stars visible through its transparent dome. The tiered seats, arranged in concentric circles, held representatives from every known spacefaring civilization in the galaxy. For the first time in council history, the chamber was completely silent, all eyes fixed on the 3 humans taking their places at the primary diplomatic circle. Ambassador Yoon. He walked with measured steps to her designated seat, her traditional Earth formal wear a striking contrast to the exotic forms of the alien representatives. Admiral Yuna and Dr. Min-Ki flanked her, their presence a reminder of humanity's military and scientific achievements. The seats they took had been empty for millennia, reserved for a civilization that could truly change the galaxy's path. We come not as supplicants or aggressors. Yoon-hee's voice carried clearly through the chamber, requiring no translation as she spoke in perfect galactic standard. But as equals, the galaxy is vast enough for many paths to the stars. Let us share what we have learned from taking our own. As she spoke, the screens throughout the chamber came alive. They showed Earth's cities, where ancient architecture stood alongside quantum technology hubs. Mars colonies thrived under massive terraformed domes, while ships slipped between space-time coordinates as easily as fish through water. Each image represented a unique human solution to the challenges of becoming a spacefaring civilization. For too long, Admiral Yuna added, her military uniform catching the starlight, the galaxy has followed a single path of development. But the universe is not a single path. It is an endless web of possibilities. Dr. Min-Ki gestured, and new images appeared. Human children learning alongside artificial intelligences, quantum computers processing calculations in ways that defied traditional physics, and ships that could dance between dimensions. Our technology took different paths because we asked different questions. We didn't ask how do we contain antimatter, but rather do we need antimatter at all? The council members watched in fascination as displays showed human solutions to problems they had struggled with for millennia. Where they had built massive energy collectors around stars, humans had learned to tap the energy between spaces. Where they had developed faster-than-light travel through brute force, humans had found ways to slip through the fabric of reality itself. We understand the Council's concerns about unchecked development. Yoon-hee continued, addressing the unspoken fear in the chamber. But look at our history. We developed in secret not out of hostility, but out of a desire to find our own way. When we had the power to strike, we chose to reveal ourselves. When confronted with aggression, we chose dialogue. The screen showed the recent standoff with the Coalition fleet, but from a new perspective. It revealed how human ships could have easily destroyed the Coalition forces, but instead chose to demonstrate their capabilities only to open dialogue. One by one, council members began to nod in understanding. The Arcturian representatives' tendrils waved in patterns of acceptance. The Proximan delegation's biolights pulsed with colors of agreement. Even the traditionally conservative Centaurian crystalline forms vibrated at frequencies indicating approval. Today, Yoon-hee rose from her seat, her voice carrying the weight of history. We propose not just membership in the Council, but a new way forward. Let Earth become a center for alternative technological development. Let us teach what we have learned, and in turn, learn from you. Let us show that there are as many paths to the stars as there are species to travel them. The chamber erupted in discussion, but it was different from the chaos of previous sessions. There was excitement in the air, a sense of possibilities previously unimagined. Species that had followed the Council's standardized development path for millennia began to see the potential in human innovation. The vote, announced the Council Elder, their ancient form glowing with internal light, is unanimous. Earth is recognized not just as a member of the Galactic Council, but as a beacon for alternative development. Let this day mark the beginning of a new era in galactic civilization. As the chamber filled with the sounds of approval, Yumhi exchanged glances with her companions. They had done more than secure Earth's place among the stars. They had opened the galaxy's eyes to new possibilities, new ways of thinking, new paths to the future. The stars visible through the dome seemed to shine brighter, as if celebrating the dawn of a new age in galactic history. Humanity had not just joined the galactic community, they had transformed it, proving that the path to the stars was not a single road, but an endless sea of possibilities waiting to be explored.